Throughout human history, civilizations have risen with astonishing brilliance, constructing vast cities, developing intricate cultures, and leaving behind stunning works of art and architecture. But just as suddenly as they appeared, some of these societies collapsed and faded into silence. Unlike the slow decline of great empires we read about in textbooks, these civilizations seem to vanish almost overnight, leaving behind unanswered questions, scattered ruins, and enigmatic symbols carved into stone. Imagine discovering an abandoned city with no explanation, its people gone, its traditions erased, and only cryptic writing left behind, writing that no one alive today can understand. Were these collapses the result of natural disasters, invasions, or something far stranger? Why did entire cultures leave behind scripts and artifacts we still cannot decipher, as though they intended their voices to remain hidden forever? In the next few minutes, we'll journey through some of the most fascinating examples of lost civilizations. The Minoans of Crete, the mysterious Indus Valley cities, the cliff dwellings of the Ancestral Puebloans, and the Olmec culture of Mesoamerica. Each holds a story of brilliance, disappearance, and enduring mystery. These are the civilizations that vanished overnight. On the island of Crete, more than 3,500 years ago, the Minoans built a society unlike any other in the ancient world. They raised grand palaces like Knossos, decorated with colorful frescoes depicting ritual dances, bull-leaping ceremonies, and scenes of daily life. Their artwork suggests a people deeply connected to the sea, with a culture rich in symbolism, trade, and spirituality. And then, almost without warning, the Minoans were gone. By around 1450 BCE, their cities lay in ruins, their once flourishing society reduced to fragments. Many historians point to the catastrophic eruption of the nearby volcanic island Thera, now known as Santorini, as a possible cause. The eruption would have unleashed tsunamis, ash clouds, and years of disrupted agriculture. Yet, while natural disaster may have played a role, the full story is far from clear. One of the strangest pieces of the puzzle lies in their undeciphered writing system. Known as linear, hundreds of clay tablets and inscriptions survive, yet despite decades of study, no scholar has been able to translate them. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs or Mesopotamian cuneiform, linear, it has resisted every attempt to unlock its meaning. Fringe theorists have suggested bold possibilities. That linear A represents a completely unique language, unrelated to any other we know. Some even claim it may hold traces of a forgotten Mediterranean culture that left no other record behind. Without understanding their script, we may never truly grasp what the Minoans valued, feared, or experienced in their final days. All we can say with certainty is this: the Minoans rose swiftly, flourished brilliantly, and then disappeared, leaving behind ruins that whisper of secrets we cannot yet read. Travel eastward to the plains of South Asia, and you'll find the remains of one of the world's first great urban cultures, the Indus Valley Civilization. Flourishing over 4,000 years ago, the people of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro built cities that rivaled anything in Mesopotamia or Egypt. They engineered sophisticated drainage systems, planned streets in perfect grids, and maintained bustling trade networks that stretched across Asia. And yet, around 1900 BCE, this civilization began to wither. Within a few centuries, their vast cities were abandoned, their culture dissolved into obscurity. What could cause such an advanced society to vanish so completely? Climate change and shifting rivers may have played a role, starving their cities of water. Others point to possible invasions or diseases that swept through the dense urban centers. But the truth is, no single explanation has ever fully solved the mystery. Adding to the enigma is their script. Carved into small stone seals, painted on pottery, and etched into tools, the symbols of the Indus Valley remain undeciphered to this day. They consist of short inscriptions, sometimes just a handful of characters, that stubbornly resist translation. Were they recording trade, religious ideas, names of rulers? Some scholars argue the inscriptions might not even represent a spoken language, but instead symbolic or ritual codes. Fringe theories even suggest the Indus script may hide connections to forgotten cultures or knowledge deliberately obscured. Without a translation, the voice of the Indus people is lost to us, leaving behind the shell of a great civilization but none of its inner story. The Indus Valley Civilization remains one of humanity's greatest unsolved puzzles, an advanced society that appeared, thrived, and then, almost overnight, disappeared into silence. High in the cliffs and canyons of the American Southwest, the Ancestral Puebloans, once known as the Anasazi, built remarkable stone dwellings that still stand today. At sites like Mesa Verde in Colorado and Chaco Canyon in New Mexico, entire communities constructed multi-story homes tucked into sheer rock faces. Their architecture reveals not just survival skills in a harsh desert landscape, but a culture with deep ties to astronomy, agriculture, and ritual. Yet by the late 1200s, something changed. The once thriving settlements were abandoned. Entire cliff cities were left empty, with pottery, tools, and even food stores seemingly deserted in place. What could drive entire populations to walk away from such carefully built homes? Archaeologists suggest a prolonged drought, making agriculture unsustainable. Others point to social unrest or resource depletion. But there are stranger possibilities too. Puebloan oral traditions speak of migrations guided by spiritual visions, of people moving across the landscape to fulfill sacred obligations. Fringe theorists suggest that these weren't collapses at all, but deliberate departures, mass pilgrimages driven by prophecy or cosmic cycles. Adding to the intrigue are the petroglyphs they left behind, spirals, figures, and celestial patterns carved into stone. Some align with solstices or lunar cycles, suggesting a sophisticated knowledge of the heavens. But many symbols remain open to interpretation. Were they star maps, spiritual records, or warnings left for those who would come after? What we know is this: the ancestral Puebloans did not simply vanish, but their great cities were left behind, swallowed by silence. And their story, like their rock carvings, invites us to wonder what drove entire communities to walk away from the homes they built in stone. Deep in the jungles of southern Mexico, traces of one of Mesoamerica's most mysterious civilizations remain, the Olmecs. Flourishing from around 1500 BCE, the Olmecs are often called the mother culture of Central America. They carved colossal stone heads, some weighing over 40 tons, with strikingly detailed faces that stare silently into the future. They developed early forms of writing and calendrical systems that would influence later civilizations like the Maya and Aztec. And yet, around 400 BCE, the Olmecs vanished. Their ceremonial centers, such as San Lorenzo and La Venta, were abandoned. Jungle reclaimed their plazas, temples, and monuments. Archaeologists still debate why. Climate shifts, floods, or conflict may have played a role, but the suddenness of their disappearance leaves room for deeper mystery. One of the most puzzling aspects of the Olmecs is their script. Only a handful of inscriptions survive, etched into stone or pottery. Some symbols appear to represent words or syllables, but the fragments are too few to decode. Without more evidence, the Olmec voice remains silent. Fringe theories go further. Some point to the colossal heads and claim they represent rulers from distant lands, evidence of cultural exchange across oceans long before Columbus. Others believe the Olmecs possessed advanced astronomical knowledge, encoding cosmic cycles into their rituals and carvings. Mainstream archaeology remains cautious, but the mystery endures. How could a culture that influenced so many who followed leave behind so little of its own story? The Olmecs may have been the first to shape the civilizations of Mesoamerica, but they disappeared overnight, leaving behind giant stone faces staring out of the jungle, as if waiting for their secrets to be uncovered. When entire civilizations vanish, scholars search for causes. And across history, a handful of recurring explanations emerge. Natural disasters are often at the top of the list. The eruption of Thera may have crippled the Minoans. Massive floods or droughts could have unraveled the Indus Valley cities. Earthquakes and shifting rivers can erase the lifelines of whole societies almost overnight. Another possibility is climate change. Even slight shifts in rainfall or temperature can devastate agriculture. For the Ancestral Puebloans, a decades-long drought likely made farming impossible, forcing communities to migrate. For the Olmecs, flooding rivers may have swallowed farmlands, turning once fertile plains into uninhabitable swamps. Conflict and invasion also leave their mark. A weakened society, already struggling with environmental pressures, becomes vulnerable to outsiders. Armies, migrations, or even smaller waves of raiders could dismantle complex systems in a short time. Disease, too, is a silent destroyer, capable of spreading through trade routes and wiping out populations with terrifying speed. But there are stranger ideas. Some researchers argue that sudden collapses can be cultural choices, societies abandoning their homes not because they had to, but because they believed destiny, prophecy, or cosmic cycles required it. Others turn to fringe theories, pointing to lost technologies, forgotten sciences, or even external influences beyond Earth. What makes these mysteries so compelling is not that civilizations fall. That is inevitable, but how quickly they can unravel. And when they leave behind undeciphered scripts, silent monuments, and ruins reclaimed by nature, we're left to wonder, did they vanish by force, by fate, or by choice? Civilizations rise, flourish, and inevitably fall. That much we know. But when entire societies disappear overnight, leaving behind undeciphered scripts, half-buried ruins, and questions we still cannot answer, the mystery deepens. The Minoans, the Indus Valley people, the Ancestral Puebloans, and the Olmecs, each of them left traces of brilliance, advanced architecture, art, astronomy, and systems of writing that defy our understanding. And yet, what we lack is their voice. Their scripts remain silent, their stories unfinished. Perhaps one day, breakthroughs in linguistics or archaeology will allow us to finally read their words, to understand their final years not through speculation but through their own accounts. Until then, we are left with fragments, symbols that resist translation, ruins that whisper of lives once lived, and mysteries that demand our imagination. History reminds us that even the greatest societies can vanish swiftly, undone by forces within or beyond their control. The real question is, if entire civilizations could disappear almost overnight, what does that mean for ours? The past holds more secrets than we can yet unlock. And maybe, just maybe, those lost civilizations are still waiting to tell us their story.